The Sega Master System is pretty cool. But what if I wanted to play a successful Sega system? Oh, but the Master System was successful over in Europe. Shut up! I'm an American! Yeah, that's why we're gonna be talking about the Sega Genesis. Genesis does what Nintendo don't. Well, that ain't very true anymore. Classic system! Now, this system first came out as the Mega Drive over in Japan in 1988. It wasn't very successful over in Japan. But then I think it was because of copyright issues for some reason. They had to rename it to the Genesis here in North America. Well, I don't know about you, but I think the Genesis is a lot more of a badass name than Mega Drive. Ooh, it's a Mega Drive. No, this is Genesis. Now, obviously, this is the Model 1 Genesis, the one they first came out with. There was also the Model 2 Genesis, which is by far the most common Genesis. And then there was a way later one, the Genesis 3. These are the ones I have, but there are so many more. There's the Nomad, which is a portable. There's a little thing that you'd slide into a Pioneer Laserdisc player. A Laserdisc player? And there was a thing that you could hook up to a specific computer. But we're just going to be talking about the base model Genesis Genesis consoles. Now this is your normal controller that you got with most Sega Genesis consoles. Later consoles you would get the 6-button controller, like this. This is the way to go. This is the OG controller. Now of course if you're playing a game like Mortal Kombat, you want to use a controller like this. But this is the OG Genesis controller. It's pretty good! It's not perfect. Sega definitely learned with the D-pad, because the Master System D-pad was bad. Like, it was bad. But this one, it's loose, but it's actually loose in a good way this time. A big controller, but it's comfortable. 6-button controller is less comfortable, so just stick with the 3-button controller. But come on, let's play some games. Yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Now, right away, one thing you notice is... Whoa! Look how colorful the graphics are. And that's because this console is 16 bits. Yeah, the original Nintendo, that was 8-bit. This is 16. And to put that into perspective, just imagine you get a pizza. Would you rather have a pizza with 8 slices or 16? Now a smartass would say, oh, the pizza would be the same size. That's not the fucking point! The other thing about the Genesis is it wasn't successful here in North America until Sonic came out. Crazy how that works.
It's still that way today!
But the Genesis was so popular that for a couple of years in the early 90s, it actually had more of the market share than Nintendo did. In response, Nintendo released the Super Nintendo. Now that kind of scared Sega a little bit because the Super Nintendo was powerful in just about every way, except for its blast processing. Sega released the Sega CD. You can put it on your Genesis just like that, and voila, you can play CDs now. So, this made the Genesis more powerful than the Super Nintendo. Super Nintendo still won, mainly because the add-on was like $250 on top of a Genesis for games that aren't that much better. Then a few years later, Sega realized, oh shit, technology is evolving. We gotta make the Genesis more powerful. Well, that's what Sega of America thought. Made the 32X. Yeah, even just by the shape of it, you can tell it bombed because it's a fucking bomb cloud. You get your Genesis and maybe Sega CD. Put this in the cartridge slot, plug it in the back, and voila! That poor Genesis. It's on life support now. I have separate videos on the Sega CD and the 32X if you want to check them out. I'll put them in the description if you want to check them out. The Genesis was doing pretty good there, and then Sega did what Sega does best. They fucked up, so Sega lost all of their momentum and almost went bankrupt. So overall, what do I think of the Sega Genesis? It's a pretty cool system. In my opinion, it is the best Sega system. Great games. It's not expensive. It's not rare. It's just it's a great system. Model 1 is a little bit more expensive than the Model 2. But then you got the Model 2, which is the most common one. The Model 3 is, I think, a little bit more expensive than the Model 1. And then the Nomad is stupid expensive. And really, any model of Genesis that's not the 1, 2, or 3 are stupid expensive. So, if you want really cool, rare, collectible Genesises, you're going to be spending a lot of money. But if you just want to have a fun time, it is a great system. It is a little expensive to collect for, though. Especially if you want complete games, which I'd actually go for complete games because they come in plastic cases. Yeah, I recommend the Genesis. It's a great system.